blind date disaster. The mechanic walked in. The city skyline sparkled like scattered diamonds against the evening sky as Emma adjusted her position at the rooftop restaurant table. The gentle breeze carried the scent of jasmine from the nearby planters, and soft jazz music drifted through the air. It should have been perfect. It should have been romantic instead. Emma found herself glancing at her watch for the third time in 10 minutes. Her assistant had insisted on setting up this blind date, claiming that Emma worked too much and needed to get back out there. The phrase made Emma's jaw tighten slightly. 3 years had passed since the accident that changed everything. 3 years since she'd become the CEO of Richardson Industries from her wheelchair. 3 years since she'd stopped believing that anyone could see past her disability to the woman she still was inside. "He's just running a little late," she murmured to herself, smoothing down her cream-colored blazer. She had chosen her outfit carefully, professional enough to feel confident, soft enough to seem approachable. The pink dress underneath added a touch of femininity that she rarely allowed herself in the boardroom. 20-5 minutes past their agreed meeting time, Emma's phone buzzed. Her date was canceling. "Emergency at work," he claimed, though Emma suspected the truth was far less noble. She had experienced enough polite rejections and sudden emergencies to recognize the pattern. Emma closed her eyes behind her sunglasses and took a slow, measured breath. The disappointment wasn't sharp anymore. It had dulled to a familiar ache that settled somewhere between her heart and her stomach. She had learned to expect these moments, but that didn't make them easier to bear. The restaurant's atmosphere suddenly felt suffocating. The couples at nearby tables seemed to mock her solitude, and the twinkling city lights below appeared cold and distant. Emma began gathering her purse, preparing to make yet another early exit from yet another failed attempt at normalcy. "Excuse me, miss, I think you dropped this." The voice was warm and slightly rough around the edges, with the hint of a working-class accent that stood out in the upscale restaurant. Emma looked up to see a man holding her silk scarf, the one that must have slipped from her lap when she'd been fidgeting with her phone. He was not what she expected to encounter at this particular establishment. His dark hair was slightly tousled and he wore a denim jacket over dark jeans. There was something refreshingly genuine about his appearance, a stark contrast to the polished executives she usually encountered. Even behind his sunglasses, she could sense his sincerity. "Oh," Emma said, accepting the scarf with a small smile. "Thank you, that's very kind." Instead of walking away as most people would, the stranger paused. "Are you all right? You seem a little, I don't know, disappointed maybe." Emma blinked in surprise. When was the last time someone had asked her that question and seemed genuinely interested in the answer? "I'm fine," she replied automatically, then caught herself. Something about his presence made her want to be honest. "Actually, no, I'm not fine. I was supposed to meet someone, but he... She trailed off, unsure why she was confiding in a complete stranger. "He stood you up," the man finished gently. His loss, the simple statement, delivered without pity or awkwardness, caught Emma off guard. She studied his face, looking for signs of the uncomfortable politeness she had grown accustomed to, but found none. "I'm David, by the way," he said, settling into the empty chair across from her without invitation. "And before you ask, I'm not supposed to be here either. This isn't exactly my usual scene." Emma found herself genuinely curious. "What is your usual scene?" David's grin was self-deprecating. "Auto shop about 15 blocks from here. I was dropping off some parts for the restaurant owner's vintage Mustang when I saw you sitting here looking like you'd lost your best friend." "You're a mechanic," Emma said, and it wasn't a question. Guilty as charged. "Not exactly rooftop restaurant material." "I know." David gestured at his casual attire. "But I figured good manners don't require a dress code." For the first time in months, Emma felt a genuine smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "Well, your timing is impeccable. I was just about to leave, and missed this view. That would be a crime." David nodded toward the glittering skyline. "Though I have to admit I spend most of my time looking at engine blocks, so anything above street level impresses me." Emma laughed softly, surprising herself with the sound. "What do you know about engine blocks?" "Everything," David replied with mock solemnity. "Ask me about a 1967 Camaro SS and I'll talk your ear off. Ask me about wine pairings or whatever they serve here, and you'll get a blank stare." "Lucky for you I know nothing about cars," Emma said, "but I could probably explain the difference between quarterly projections and annual forecasts." "Ah, a numbers person." David nodded approvingly. "Let me guess, accountant, financial advisor, CEO." "Actually," Emma replied, watching for his reaction. David raised his eyebrows. "Impressive. No wonder you can afford this place." He paused, then added with a grin. "Also explains why your date was an idiot for standing you up. Intimidated, probably." Emma felt something she hadn't experienced in years, the simple pleasure of being seen as herself, not as her disability or her position, but as a person worth talking to. "You're not intimidated?" she asked. "By success?" "No, by intelligence." "Definitely, but in a good way." David leaned back in his chair. "I may work with my hands, but I appreciate people who work with their minds." Besides, I figure anyone who builds something worth building probably has stories worth hearing. They talked as the sun set completely, painting the sky in shades of deep purple and gold. David told her about restoring classic cars and the satisfaction of bringing something broken back to life. Emma found herself sharing stories about building her company, about the challenges and victories that came with leadership. Neither of them mentioned her wheelchair, and for the first time in 3 years, Emma didn't feel its presence as a barrier between her and another person. When the evening grew cool and the restaurant began to empty, David stood to leave. "This has been the best conversation I've had in months," he said sincerely. "I know I'm not what you were expecting tonight, but I'd love to continue this sometime. Maybe somewhere with better lighting so we can both ditch the sunglasses." Emma looked up at him, feeling something she'd almost forgotten. "Hope, I'd like that," she said, meaning it completely. "Fair warning though, I come with complications." David's smile was gentle and understanding. "Don't we all? The good stuff usually does." As Emma handed him her business card, their fingers brushed briefly, and she felt a warmth she hadn't experienced in years. Sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected disasters. Sometimes a stood-up date leads to exactly where you're supposed to be. And sometimes, just sometimes, the right person walks into your life when you've almost given up on smiling again. Emma watched David walk toward the elevator, and for the first time in 3 years, she was already looking forward to tomorrow.